So nothing's regular anymore. Welcome back to 7997. With your hosts, Chris and Jackie, two black immigrants living our best life in Mexico. And if you haven't heard, there's been some changes to the regularization program. I think I can illustrate those changes through a story. So, myself and Jackie, when we came down, we used the economic solvency program, which means you have to prove you have a certain amount of income regularly coming in, or if you're retired, you have a certain amount in the bank, in order to qualify for some type of residency, whether it's permanent or temporary, for a year, 2 years, 3 years. There was also an alternate program called the regularization program, which is kind of a amnesty program, I could maybe describe it as, which the original stipulations were you had to have been on an expired visa, and had to have come into the country or had that visa expire at some point within a certain time limit. So every year it would get bumped up a little bit. So, in 2024, I think the limit was like you had to be in by 2022 and have an expired visa. You didn't have to meet any financial requirements. It was basically sort of an easy pass to get in, but you had to be sort of in an illegal status at some point, meaning you overstayed your visa. So a lot of people got residency through that program because it's pretty easy to do so. You come in once, you can overstay a visa, you can go back home after that, stay for as long as you want. As long as you're within that right time period and you went in, you filled out the paperwork and paid the money, you could get a residency basically. And that was the program that my stepdad and my mother were going to choose to use when they came down, because sort of the paperwork process for the regular solvency was really complicated based on their particular situation. So they wanted to use that regularization program. Got all their ducks in a row. My stepdad was really ready to go and finish off the paperwork, get his residency finished off. And the day of his appointment, he got sick, really sick, and had to be in the hospital. Heart failure, kidney failure. Ended up being a whole, couple of months, kind of get himself back to, his normalcy, his normal self. And in that time of a couple of months, the entire program got turned on its head. So now the program is, you had to overstay your visa, but you also had to have been in the country and not left the country, talking about Mexico, since 2023. So you basically had to have been illegal for, almost a year or two in order to qualify for the program and never have left the country, which very few people now qualify for. So basically, he ended up missing out on that program, and in turn, my mother also ended up missing out on the regularization program the previous way it was laid out. So now they're kind of back to square one, and I think a lot of people are feeling this pain right now with the changes in this program. Some of the questions are here of like, I always wonder why the program in the beginning was so easy to get into. Like, why was it such, it really didn't take much for you to qualify. You didn't have to have any financials, along with it. It felt sort of counterproductive to what you might want to do as a country. You might not want to just let everybody in because they kind of stayed illegally and that's the only qualification you had. And the flip side to that now was that they've made that program a whole lot more difficult to get into, which, sucks for a lot of people, but I can also understand it. And it kind of begs the question, like, is this the retaliation that I think people were looking for from the Mexican government against U.S. citizens? This regularization program is something that's been really, easy for people to get into from the U.S. and other countries. And maybe that this is part of their retaliation kind of, against what Trump is doing with the tariffs and all these other things that are making life harder for Mexicans at the end of the day. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe somebody does. Maybe Sean Bynum will come out at some point and explain why those regulations changed, if that's even, within her purview of making those changes. Maybe it was someone else who made those changes. But that program being changed and even not even available in some places. So like here in San Miguel, that you can't even get the regularization program anymore. It's now been suspended. Now, granted, that suspension did happen earlier in the year as well. Like in January for the first month, you couldn't get the regularization program. It just wasn't available for whatever reason. So that could be a temporary thing, could be a long-term thing. I guess I'm saying all this to really say and wrap up and sum up, like, if you have your pathway to get into Mexico, take advantage of it as soon as possible. Things are changing quickly, and things are always changing. And it's not just about the current administration in the U.S. There's always a change within the Mexican government and the way things are run when it comes to, immigration and how your statuses could be set up. So even with the regular economic solvency programs, those minimums for income are now being raised up because they're based on the Mexican minimum wage, which has now gone up even more. So every year it gets more and more expensive for you to be able to come down to Mexico using that program. In this regularization program, every year they say, hey, it may not come back next year, take advantage of it. It may not be here. I think we finally hit that point where it's still here, but it's in a state where most people just they're not going to qualify for it. So this is a warning out there to say, I guess, do as much as you can, as quickly as you can. If there's something you want to do, whether it's Mexico or any other country, like, don't expect those standards and those settings and those guidelines to stay the same forever. The program that you think you might want to use to get your residency someplace else might not be there tomorrow. So take the time to go ahead, knock that out, do what you got to do to get into these programs, and make sure you have an exit from the United States if that's what you desire to do. So just a little word to the wise. We're feeling it here at home, definitely the change in that program. I'm sure many of you out there as well. Feel free to share your stories in the comments if you've been trying to get residency through this program and it didn't quite work out because of the timing and the changes. But as always, like, comment, subscribe. We enjoy hearing from you guys in the comments. Just want to give a little public service announcement out there for you guys. So as always, Cuídate, Arias Garce, take care and take a chance, and we'll see you later. Peace, y'all.